And welcome to the Dynasty 365 podcast, the Dynasty Fantasy Football podcast for fantasyandframes.com. If you have not and you are a return listener, please subscribe, rate, and review on your podcast platform of choice. If you are a first-time listener, please stick around and let us earn that 5-star review. So, I am joined today by my co-host, Jorge Edwards. Jorge, how you doing, man?
What's going on, man? Just crazy times in the NFL and just along for the ride, man.
Absolutely. It's just going to get crazier. We are also joined by our IDP guru, Nate Markham. Nate, how you doing, man?
I'm good, man. We got about 24 hours until a meaningful, air quote, football game happens.
Yeah, that should be interesting.
Just take it. Exactly.
I'll take whatever at this point.
Absolutely. It's an NFL sanctioned game. We're one step closer.
Yes,
right.
and we will be near or on that field here in about a week and a half for the Fantasy Football Expo. So I'm looking forward to that.
Mm-hmm.
We are also joined by one of our UK representatives, Bill Mustafa. Bill, how you doing, man?
Yeah, I'm all right. Really enjoyed last week, so I thought I'll get the espresso machine going and join you guys again.
There you go. Is it a double, triple, quadruple? How many is it this week?
It's only a double. It's only a double for the minute.
Nah, you have to sleep at some point, right?
yeah.
Well, we got to find out which espresso brand you're drinking and try and get them as a sponsor if they're UK based. Just
No, they're the one. Yeah. They're the ones that George Clooney does the adverts for.
Is that a good thing or a bad thing? I don't know.
Well, coffee connoisseurs will not think so, but it does the job for me. You put a capsule in a machine, you press a button, it's done. Easy.
I currently have McDonald's McCafe coffee that I throw in my coffee machine, so I would not consider myself a coffee connoisseur.
I'm all right then. Similar company, we're good.
All right, so it's good to have all you guys. I am excited to be back again for this week. The NFL season is obviously underway since we have a lot of news to cover, and we will try to get through it in a expedient manner so we can get to our primary subject of the day, which is wide receiver contender buys and training camp battles to watch. We have a list of some of those guys that we're going to go through, cover kind of, what we'd be willing to pay for them as a contender and what their outlook might be, as well as hit some camp battles that interest all of us. So with the news, we're going to start from the top. Obviously, the elephant in the room, the Deshaun Watson 6-game suspension. There's a lot to be said about this. I don't think we are the show to really parse this out and dive deep into kind of where this suspension came from. Obviously, everyone has their opinions, as well as everyone knows a lot of the facts that have gone along with this suspension. But I think the most valuable thing for us to do is kind of focus on next steps with the NFL. Deshaun was suspended 6 games. He is not losing a lot of money. He was not fined anything. Sue Robinson ruled that it was a 6-game suspension. If anyone read the release of kind of her conclusions, this is on the NFL. This is on the NFL based off the precedent they have set in the past for sexual assault and nonviolent sexual assault. You can look into more of that if you want, but the NFL has made an attempt to change their policy for this in the past year as a direct result of this. Sue Robinson basically called them out for that of, hey, you're basically making a public stunt out of this. You're just trying to, this is a PR move, essentially. So she punished Deshaun Watson based off precedent and the cases that the NFL presented. NFL brought 4 cases of 4 different women that were accusers of him. Obviously, the NFL does not have subpoena power, so they can't get all of these 24 women in. It just depends if they want to participate. So next steps are the NFL is appealing this. It will go to either Roger Goodell or his designee. They will determine the final say on this, and then likely it'll go to federal court because the NFLPA will sue them. The idea that I am working based off of is at the beginning of this, they talked about a settlement. Deshaun Watson and the NFLPA said 6 to 8 games is the most we'll take. The NFL said 10 to 12 games and a $8 million fine is the least we'll take. Obviously, those didn't line up, so it went to the hearing, and we all know what happened. I am not a fortune teller. I can't tell you what's going to happen, but that is the information that I have, at least the most pertinent information that I have based off this. I would say at least for this season, Deshaun will serve his 6-game suspension, and this will carry over into the future. So go ahead, Jorge.
No, I was going to say, we talk about precedent, maybe not in the NFL, but in sports, and I don't follow baseball too closely, but I want to say that there was somebody, a prominent player in the major leagues back in April or March, that just one allegation was enough to get this person suspended for at least a year, maybe more. Nate, you'd probably know better than me who's the player in question. But so if one league is able to do this, then I don't see why the NFL and just doesn't follow suit. But they're, Calvin Ridley suspended a year for using DraftKings. Deshaun Watson gets allegations, and for the people who are out there who are like, well, it's allegations. It's not like he was convicted of anything. The court said that he wasn't convicted. They're just allegations. It doesn't mean anything. It does mean something when you have the 37 people rubbing you down. You're finding these people not even like reputable people, like people off of Instagram. Anybody want to give me a massage? You slide into my DMs on Instagram. It doesn't make any sense. It sounds creepy. It sounds disgusting. I certainly don't want to hear like, oh, all these women are banding together to extort him. I'm sorry, but like 30 plus people aren't banding together to extort him. 30 plus people have, the right to say what they want to say. And if they feel that they've been taken advantage of, then they need to, say their piece, which they have. And hopefully this gets corrected. And he's suspended for a very long time.
Yes, and the one thing I will say also in the conclusion, Sue Robinson essentially said, it is more likely than not than that this happened, that what these women say happened actually happened. She said that. It's in writing. So, the punishment is based off precedent and what the NFL has written in their player conduct policy. And the NFL was very clear on gambling. That is why Calvin Ridley is suspended for a full year. They were very, very clear because they think that threatens the sanctity of the game more than what Deshaun Watson did. And I think the NFL is trying to correct. Unfortunately, it's too little too late.
Yeah, we'll find out. We heard today that Goodell is pushing for a year, if not longer, an indefinite suspension, that he has final authority, so on and so forth. I think as much as we want to voice our anger and displeasure with what's happened so far, at the end of the day, we're kind of stuck in a rotating pattern where we have no action happening as of right now since yesterday. So it's just a waiting game at this point, and it's frustrating. Yeah, I don't even know where to. And the thing is, here's the thing, and I guess we can kind of wrap this portion up here. At the end of the day, everybody can get their wish, and he's suspended for a year or whatnot. What does this do to the actual victims? How does this help the actual victims in this situation? I don't think it does a damn thing, and I think that's even a bigger problem than we're all talking about when it comes to the NFL fallout from this is. Like we should care less what the NFL fallout is. We should care about what's going to happen to these individuals going forward.
Yes, absolutely. So no easy way to transition from that, but we're going to go ahead and try. So the next bit of great news is Dolphins tampering investigation. Everyone kind of forgot about that because of the Deshaun Watson thing, and they have officially closed up the Dolphins tampering investigation. And oh boy, did the Dolphins screw up. Their owner and their chairman and their vice chairman were just brazenly just going around talking to Brady, talking to Peyton, not giving a single F what they did or who they talked to or what they said. So end of the day, Dolphins tampered with Tom Brady twice. They tampered with Sean Payton. They didn't essentially punish them for tanking. They basically said Stephen Ross basically told Brian Flores that, hey, you should lose games so we get a better draft pick. Wink, wink, nudge, nudge, like LOL. And they they didn't really punish them for that, but they did take away their 2023 first round pick and 2024 fourth round pick. Their owner is suspended for a period of time. Their vice chairman is suspended for a full year. What effect does that have on the Miami Dolphins and their player value this year? Absolutely nothing. So, future, it would have been nice to see if the Dolphins could have moved up and tried to get one of these top quarterbacks next year, but I don't believe that'll be happening after they lost a 23 first.
Does it help Tua's value in Dynasty then?
I think it might.
Might do.
Yeah. I mean, unless they really, really suck this year, which I don't think they're going to suck that bad. They're going to be middle of the road, probably at worst. I don't know if they're going to have any other options. They might have to stick with Tua. So, yeah, I think it certainly might help his dynasty value.
Tua gave Goodell a ring and said thank you.
I love how a lot of us are still stuck on the, I guess they're going to have to stick with Tua. Like, well, what if he succeeds? What if he's actually good with the players in the system that, let's look at this. People want to still hammer home that, he doesn't have the arm to throw long, and then other people will say, well, look at his statistics. He was one of the most accurate deep ball passers, but then other people will say, well, he only did it like 5 times. So what does that mean? Let's say that he has a weak arm. Let's say that he can't deliver the ball down the field consistently. In this system, Jimmy Garoppolo is not somebody who can air it out in this system, yet he found a way to be utilized well within it. I don't see why Tua can't be that same player. Given obviously the makeup of the teams are different, but the talent wise, the Dolphins are stacked.
Yeah, but the difference between that comparison is that there wasn't a team and there wasn't a mantra of, I don't have a good analogy for tanking for Tua versus Jimmy Garoppolo. They honestly, that was the whole plan. You want to tank for Tua, and I think that's one of the problems is that he was on a higher pedestal than a person like you, Jimmy Garoppolo, as an example. And I think the expectations that's what separates and has given so much polarization to him is because of the draft capital invested, if you ask me. If he was a early second or the 7th quarterback taken, I don't think there would be as much pressure, if you want to call it that, or polarization, as I said, on his production this year.
Yeah. And all that said, let's keep in mind the Dolphins, no less than 5 months ago, just offered their owner's firstborn child to Tom Brady, a 45-year-old man, to come be their quarterback. So,
yeah, there is that bit.
Sure, you want to throw that in there, fine.
Yeah. Guys getting paid. DK Metcalf got a 3-year, $72 million contract. Deebo Samuel, 3-year, $73.5 million contract. These wide receivers are getting paid and getting paid big time, and good for them. I like the 3-year length of these. They're going to have another shot to get another contract when they're going into their age 29 season. So good for them. Irv Smith, thumb injury. He might be back for week 1. We shall see. Honestly, this sucks. Irv Smith has not had any opportunity to be on the field in most of his career and build a rapport with Kirk Cousins. I really, even if he is back on week 1, I really think this hurts Irv Smith's 2022 value as well as his dynasty value, because he's just never going to have a chance to build that rapport with a quarterback who's going to be there for the next 2 years.
Yeah, I mean, you look how he finished his rookie year. The targets started going his way. He had a few good games there, missed all of last year. And then this offseason, the hype starts building again. It's like, oh, this offense, you got O'Connell coming over from the Rams. This is going to be a very pass-heavy offense. Everybody's going to get there, and then this happens, right? And so they say he can be back for week 1, but in what condition is he going to be back for week 1? I don't know what it's like to have thumb surgery or what the recovery process is, let alone catching a football going however fast they go in, catching a football with a surgically repaired thumb and 4 weeks later. That sounds painful.
It sure does.
Yeah. So I don't know.
More bad news. Tim Patrick out for the year with torn ACL. This sucks. A undrafted guy that just got a nice contract, but I wish him well. Hope he recovers and come back next year. Immediate reactions. Does this make you more confident in Jerry Jeudy, or does this excite you more for KJ Hamler?
Both.
Okay, I like it. So, they both obviously gain value for this year. Anybody that had Jerry Jeudy, it always sucks to see a player get injured. I hate it. I want all these guys to be healthy. I want all these guys to succeed. That is just not a fact of the matter. So we'll see what Jerry Jeudy can do with all of his opportunity. James Washington had a Jones fracture in his foot, so we're going to be seeing a lot of Dalton Schultz, a lot of Jalen Tolbert at the beginning of the season, with Michael Gallup still trying to come back.
I think, you know what you might see, actually? You might see more Tony Pollard and Zeke on the field at the same time as well. I think they might split Pollard out just into the slot, or at least into multiple sets. And maybe, because I one of the things with this whole Zeke and Pollard, and it was explained perfectly as far as I'm concerned, is that it feels like it's divided. If you're a Zeke truther, that means you can't like Tony Pollard, and vice versa. And I think this gives an opportunity, maybe not for you to draft both on the same team, but I think it inflates that. I think we've seen that when target shares go away, it's not always the next receiver up to see the benefit. Sometimes it's the running back. And in this case, there's 2 of them that are both good pass catchers. So it wouldn't shock me to see a little bit more of target share go Pollard's direction.
I like it. So Michael Thomas is finally back practicing. Hallelujah. Praise whatever thing you worship. Good for him. I hope he can be healthy. Buccaneers offensive line, Ryan Jensen. Last I saw was out several months. I don't know if you guys have seen anything different, but that hurts.
They were hugging him on the ground, and they were, your teammates know your reaction, and they can tell how much pain and how much it's going to be. I don't know. It doesn't sound good from what I understand.
Yeah, they're going to lose their entire interior offensive line, and that really sucks.
Yeah.
Wish him well. Lamar Jackson does not yet have a contract. They will stop negotiations at a certain point, but I'd assume that man is going to get the bag. And we don't want to ignore all of the defense, and we certainly don't want to ignore a Washington football great. Ryan Kerrigan announced his retirement. I don't know if anyone listening has paid all that much attention to the Washington Commanders football team / Redskins in the past decade, but Ryan Kerrigan, one of the better defensive players in the NFL.
Absolutely. He there are a lot of players for Washington back in the day when they were actually winning, every other, 3 years. Who were just model players in the community, model players on the field, consistent as ever, as anyone. So yeah, it was great to see him, sign his contract for a day and become a Commander and go off into the sunset.
Yes. No, good for him. Congratulations on an awesome career. So we are going to go ahead and get into our subject for the day and our Dynasty wide receiver buys for contenders. So, what is a contender buy? Does anyone have a good definition for that? Because I'll take my shot at it.
I think for me, are you talking about like the process of a contender buy, or like what is like what exactly do you mean?
What are we looking at here? When you try to identify a contender buy at the wide receiver position, what are you looking for?
I want a producer. I want somebody who's it's not a matter of talent. It's not a matter of unknowns. Like like a known producer, a known commodity that you can add to your team, whether it's giving up a lot of draft capital for a short-term investment, but as long as that investment results in you getting a fantasy football championship, then by all means make that move.
Yeah, and I think the one of the main themes of it is short-term. Right. Someone that's going to really produce for you for the next 1, 2, maybe 3 years if you're lucky, but I think you're looking at the next year or two. So let's dive right into it. I'm going to kind of go around the frames with this and have everyone throw their input in. We're going to start at the top with the guy we just talked about who's finally practicing again, Michael Thomas. Nate, what do you got on Michael Thomas? How do you feel about him as a contender buy?
So, I mean, of all the names, it's probably I don't want to say worries me the most, but it might worry me the most. There's just a lot of it's not him returning to a system that he was comfortable with. It's returning to a system that he's very unfamiliar outside of the offense. It's obviously the person delivering the ball to him, which is going to be different. And as Jorge said, typically in these buys, their value is suppressed a little bit because they're aging. Michael Thomas is 29 at this case. The value to others who are building from the dynasty standpoint are willing to give them up a little bit, and so you gain the value. The question I have with Michael Thomas is, in 2 years, in 2024, the Saints have every reason to just basically unload him, which would result in almost nearly a $14 million cap savings. So then you have to worry, what situations are he going to be in then? At least, if anything, with these contender buys, I would like a little bit of continuity, solidarity for the next at least 2 years, if that makes sense.
Yes, that makes a lot of sense. And I think he has that, right?
I think for 2 years, yeah. Because next year, if they cut him, it's less than $3 million in savings. So there's no benefit short of injury. But I do worry about this year, just getting acclimated first year back, and then having like I said, between not having Drew Brees obviously hurts, but we'll see what Jameis can do.
Yep. I think, Jameis was pretty good in his limited time last year, and the offense is going to remain relatively similar to what they've run. Mm-hmm. They promoted their quarterbacks coach to their offensive coordinator, so they're going to take a lot of that. I think the big thing you're missing with Sean Payton is he's a genius.
Right.
He's one of the best offensive play callers in the NFL. And there's just no substituting a guy that is so brilliant in game as Sean Payton. So,
here's the thing. The 2019, I think it was, when Drew Brees was injured for a good chunk of the season, and Taysom Hill had to come in at quarterback, and at the same time, Michael Thomas was dealing with his own injuries. Michael Thomas was still producing, even with Taysom Hill throwing the ball. So how concerned are we really with Jameis, other than the fact that Jameis likes to throw the ball far? I mean, versus Drew Brees, like to throw the ball, not as far. I don't know. I'm liking what I'm seeing from all the reports. Everybody's hyping him up. He looks great. Yada yada yada. Obviously, we don't really know until we actually see him on the field and perform. But all it takes. I'm looking at his value right now, according to DLF. Looking at his ADP, it is low. It is not great, which is great for all of us in dynasty startups and in redraft coming up. But it is very, very low. Not great. All it takes is week one for him to go off for 120 yards and a touchdown, and then you're going to see that thing shoot right back up. So if you're trying to acquire for the short term, and build your, have one of these contender buys, now is your window to do that. because you just need one performance. And even to be honest with you, the way everybody loves to overreact to things, one preseason game where he goes off, you're going to see that ADP start to rise back up again. So right now, before Hall of Fame game, before next week in preseason week 1, this is your time to get Michael Thomas.
Yes. Yeah. And just for the sake of argument, I think my price for Michael Thomas, if I'm a contender and I'm trying to go get him, I'm going to throw a 23-second at someone, and I'm going to call it quits there.
Yeah, I think that's where I'm at too. I think a second round pick, if I'm looking at my team and going, do you know what, I really need a wide receiver 3 with upside to push me over the edge, then I might be inclined to throw another late second in or a third. But I think 23 seconds where I'm at too.
All right. Sounds good. So let's move on to our next guy. I'm just gonna go ahead and throw it to you, Bill. Stephon Diggs as a contender buy for wide receiver.
I mean, of course. This is a guy that, I'm removing all bias. I know you can see the buffalo on my chest, but this is a guy that's in a great offense. He's got a great quarterback. His rapport with the quarterback is awesome. I think he was a top 3 receiver 2 seasons ago, a top 7 receiver last season in fantasy terms. He has the potential to be the overall wide receiver 1. He's in that group of guys. So if you're a contender, of course he's a guy you would target, in my opinion. I'd give multiple firsts for Stephon Diggs to get him on my team if I'm looking at trying to win a championship. And I know there's a lot of hype around Gabe Davis, and I'm one of the guys in the community that's hyping him up, but he should make Diggs' life easier. You see what happens when defenses try and take Diggs away. You're more than capable of taking Diggs away, but ask the Chiefs. They couldn't take Gabe Davis away on the other side. He's not Emmanuel Sanders. He's not just a guy. He's good enough that if you don't show him the respect he deserves, he's going to cause you damage. So then you have to ask yourself the question: Are we just gonna fully dial in on stopping Steph Diggs, or are we going to have to take our chances sometimes? And Josh doesn't miss. You leave Steph one-on-one, or you give him a chance, Josh is going to find him. So yeah, I think if you're a contender, Steph Diggs is a buy, multiple for like two first round picks, easy. I'm smashing it set if someone sends that my way.
And going back to what Nate said, Stephon Diggs is a guy with real security. He's attached to one of the best quarterbacks in the NFL. He's 28 still. He's going to be 29 in late November. He has an easy 2 years of high level production left.
Yeah, and he has a potential out in 25. So I mean, that's the earliest. The Bills, I mean, I can't see any situation that they would ever just take away that tandem. It's just too dynamic.
Yeah.
Yes, it is.
It's crazy, Bill, how you're like, Josh Allen doesn't miss. And I'm like, man, I mean, he did. He did for a long time, but they coached that out of him, which is funny because that's what they said is the thing that you can't coach is accuracy. But whatever Dable did, it worked.
Yeah, well, I think it was whatever Josh did. Josh and Jordan Palmer, whatever they did.
Touche.
Man, just not even. Brian Dable leaves Buffalo, and Bill's just like, nope, he didn't do anything.
I know he did work, but let's see if Daniel Jones turns into Josh Allen, and then we'll see who put that work in.
Don't pull up Josh Allen, Daniel Jones first 38 games or something side by side, because they are basically identical.
Yeah, that doesn't surprise me. Surprise me.
But
okay. Yeah, I was going to say, let me ask you guys a question here in terms of trade value. Would you give up a first and a third for Stephon Diggs if you're a contender?
Yes.
Yeah. Or you want a contender buy?
Yeah.
Easily?
100%. Yeah.
And in a heartbeat. Take my money.
Yeah. All day.
Because you find me a first, even if it's to supplant a receiver that's going to give you the production for the next 2 to 3 years, a ceiling play for anybody, even after 2 years until they get to that third year window, is still at what I would expect Stephon Diggs to be after 2 years. I mean, he's in that second tier of receivers, really, really close to that first tier. And my tier is only like 3 receivers deep. So he's knocking on the door of the. I'd rather take him over. I would rather have Stephon Diggs over Jamar Chase personally myself this year.
Ooh, and
This year,
Oh,
not Dynasty.
Just for what? Yeah.
This year.
Redraft.
Yeah, yeah. But that goes into it. You got to look at it, extrapolate each year, and then look at value. And Diggs still for the next year to 2 is in my top. It's got to be top 8 receivers, even for the next 2, barring injury.
I like it. All right, I'm going to take the next one just because I am, as I've said before, an unapologetic Derek Carr fanboy. So Devontae Adams is a dynasty buy if I've ever seen one. He was just traded from the Packers to the Raiders. He's 29. He's going to be 30 in December. I'd say he has another 2 years of high-level production left. He's attached to a very, very good quarterback. Is he elite? No. But is he able to supply a high-level fantasy finish? Yes. Let's not forget Derek Carr just went ahead and made Nelson Aguilar and Zay Jones like a total of $60 million in the past 2 years. So Derek Carr is a good fantasy quarterback. He's a good real quarterback. And Devontae Adams is, I feel like it's almost a consensus at this point that he's just the best receiver in the league at this point. Even
I
with
thought we just spoke
Hunter
about the
Renfrow.
best receiver in the league. I must have missed that. I'm confused.
See, I'm glad you brought that up because when I'm looking at trade analyzers and you can pick whatever one you want to use, the cost for acquiring Devonta Adams is the same thing as the cost for acquiring Stephon Diggs. So I have to ask you, both wide receivers have, they're not going anywhere. They're not leaving their respective teams anytime soon. Would you pay the same amount for Devonta Adams than you would a Stephon Diggs, Nate? Or is that something you're not to because of the age for Devonta Adams? It could be a problem.
Start with Billy because I want to hear a person who. I mean, I think we know that answer, right? You would pay more for Diggs, correct?
I would, yeah.
I would
you're
too.
talking about something, yeah.
Yeah, I would. Yeah. He's going to be 30. He's going to a new offense, and as much as it makes sense that he's with his old college quarterback, and Derek Carr's going to get him the ball, and he's obviously going to be the number 1 receiver. I just want to take the security blanket that I know that Diggs is going to be, like you say, a top 8 wide receiver. I know that Diggs is going to get his receptions.
Mm-hmm.
I just feel safer with it. Now, I would give a first and a third if that's the price for both of them, no questions asked.
Right.
Yes.
If I was a contending team, but if you're saying to me, right, which guy are you prepared to pay the most for as a contender? For me, it's Stephon Diggs.
Yeah. Or if you have 2 offers out there, 2 different managers are offering you both of those 2 receivers for a first and a third, who are you hitting accept on? You're going to say Diggs. And
yeah, for me.
If I compare the 2 a little bit in that I don't know this answer. And this is more of a hypothetical, but more of a toss up for you guys too. What does Josh McDaniels do for this offense as far as does he instill a sense of short intermediate routes, kind of like what they accentuated in New England for a very long time, and allow Derek Carr to do what he does extremely well, which is be accurate, move the chains, and allow them to possess the ball? And does that limit Devontae Adams' total upside? And does the loss of Brian Dable change Buffalo? And I think it doesn't change Buffalo more so than I'm worried a little bit about Adams, even though I'm not. It's just there's a couple different check marks, if that makes sense, or negatives against their overall ceiling.
Yes, and one of the biggest marks against Devontae Adams in my mind, I'm on the same page as you guys. I would take Stephon Diggs over Devontae Adams right now. Biggest question marks for me are Hunter Renfrow and Darren Waller.
Correct. Yes.
The Bills have Gabe Davis, still unproven. He has not done it for a long term. He had his five game stretch last year. Hunter Renfrow was one of the most productive slot receivers in the NFL last year. Darren Waller is still one of the most physically gifted and productive tight ends in the NFL. It is very, very hard to maintain 3 high-level receiving fantasy options on one team. Very hard. Ask Nate. Looking at the Chiefs for the past few years, it's been Travis Kelce and Tyreek Hill, and then a mishmash of a bunch of other guys.
Someone's missing out.
Yes,
Exactly.
yeah, and it's not going to be Devontae Adams. That's not my concern,
No.
but he's still going to have some of that volume taken from him. All right, let's move on to our next guy. Another big dynasty buy is going to be Cooper Kupp. What do you got on Cooper Kupp, Jorge?
No, nobody's acquiring Cooper Kupp. You would nobody's giving up Cooper. You would have to trade if you were like a Jonathan Taylor manager. Jonathan Taylor, your next 4 first-round picks, like some obscene trade package to get Cooper Kupp. Or you happen to find the most gullible Cooper Kupp manager ever who would accept 2 firsts and 2 seconds next year. Yeah, that's my Cooper Kupp take right there. Does anybody else have a different opinion there, or am I just kind of on with my analysis?
I think your asking price is really high for a guy that's going to be 30 in, what is it? Oh, June. Okay, so he's still got a little ways to go.
I mean, I turned down 2 first-round picks for him recently.
Okay.
This team I've got, it's a contending team, won the championship last year and the year before. So I gave a 22 first for him before Stafford got there, and now I'm not even talking when you send me 2 first-round picks. Just straight decline. I'm not interested. You've got to come with some heat if you want to try and get Cooper Kupp off me as a contender.
All right, then let's change the tables there. Cooper Kupp, you have him on your roster. You're a rebuilding team. What are you going to do? Someone comes with 2 firsts for Cooper Kupp, and you're just not going to win this year. It's not going to happen.
I think that's where you like if you're not a contending team. But then my argument is if you've got Cooper Kupp on your roster and you saw how he was performing last season, why didn't you get into contender mode and start going and buying guys like James Conner and players like that? So you just don't know how to play Dynasty fantasy football. I would say so. I'd be trying to get him off you for a loan first. But if you're not a contender, then it's sell time. But I still think 2 first-round picks is where the conversation starts, even if you're in rebuild mode.
Yes, agreed. Mm-hmm. All right, I'm going to throw one to Bill. We're going to cover it in a little bit more detail, and then we're going to kind of do a lightning round through the rest of them. So Mike Evans, where are you at with him, Bill? Let's really dive into Mike Evans, and then we can keep moving after that.
Yeah, I like Mike Evans for a contender, of course. We're still not sure about Godwin's health. And I know a lot of people are talking about Julio Jones going there. Apparently he's, standing out in practice. But we know that Mike Evans is going to get the ball. We know Mike Evans is going to get touchdowns. This is a guy that gets 1,000 yards a season, every season. He's going to be a wide receiver 1. Might be looking at wide receiver 9 to 12, but it's guaranteed. Mm-hmm. What I would pay for him, that's the question. He's not the youngest. There is competition for targets there when Godwin comes. What happens after Brady retires at the end of the year? I think if you're a contender, a fair price is a first-round pick, but I don't know if that necessarily gets the job done.
Yes, the starting price is a 23 first for Mike Evans, and some people are going so hard in the other direction that they're just not going to give up a 23 first. And that kind of brings us back to the conversation we were having just before the show of are 23 firsts being overvalued a bit? Like I know it's a good class. I know it's a really good class. And we're talking in reference to a super flex draft here. But the example I used was someone just sent Cam Akers and a second to a friend of mine for a single 23 first. Like, are we getting a little carried away with the value of these 23 first round picks?
Yeah, I think so.
Yeah, absolutely. For every manager that's, I'm all about these picks. There are managers out there who'd rather get rid of picks for, a quote unquote known commodity. Nate and I were on a podcast yesterday called Getting Defensive, and Gary Van Dyke, who was the host of it, he's made it very clear from a fantasy football standpoint. Yeah, I'm not F them picks. give me Give me the
Let's
player.
need a fantasy football.
Yeah, pretty much. Yeah, exactly.
Exactly.
Yeah,
The
so
thing is, I think. Sorry, Jorge.
No, go
I
ahead.
think people forget sometimes, especially when there's an exciting class like we had in 2021 and we've got in 2023 coming up.
Sorry.
That the point of fantasy football is to win them trophies and to win the money that you get for winning the league. It's not about having, oh, look at my value of my team, look how many picks I've got, look at all these young guys. Like, yeah, that's great. How many times have you won the championship? That's the question. That's what we're playing for. Otherwise, what's the point?
Yeah. First round picks are great. Parades are better.
Yeah, 100%. You can't say better than that.
Yes. All right. So I want to go through. I got 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7 guys left on this list. I want to do 30 seconds or less, and then we can knock out a couple camp battles we want to watch. So, Nate, I'm going to start with you. We're going to just go down straight down the list. Keenan Allen, 30 seconds or less.
Love Keenan Allen. Not my first approach in terms of contender rebuy. I feel like that with the Mike Williams signing, and a lot's going to rest on the shoulders of how Josh Palmer responds to a full season with heavy targets. I love Keenan Allen. I worry about the workload. I worry about injuries, and I just think as a whole is on the downturn. I think I could find better investments.
All right. Brandon Cooks, Jorge.
A contender buy. I mean, if I had to start 4 wide receivers, he'd be the 4th wide receiver I'd be trying to fill him. I get he's a 1,000-yard receiver almost every single year, despite being traded to almost every single team. You know, Davis Mills is the quarterback. Everybody's on the Davis Mills bandwagon. I'm not giving up too much to try to acquire him, like a high 3rd, low 2nd, and that's it. For my thoughts on what Cooks is worth there.
All right. I'm going to hit Robert Woods. I'd say Robert Woods, at least this year, is the unquestioned wide receiver 1 on the Tennessee Titans. I don't think Treylon Burks is there yet. He's got a long way to go. Woods just turned 30. He's coming back from injury. It seems like he is healthy. So, I really wish the best for him, but I would say he is going to get heavy targets this year as long as he can stay on the field. And I feel good about Robert Woods as a high-end wide receiver 3 this year. Bill, can you hit Adam Thielen for us?
Yeah, I think sole contender buy. You're only buying him if you're a contender. I'm expecting Minnesota to throw the ball a lot more than we've seen in recent times. It's just, injury to end last season. How's he going to come back? I'd be comfortable giving a late 2nd for him if I'm in that stage where I really think I'm, a wide receiver 2 or a wide receiver 3 with upside to take me over the top. But yeah, only if you really think you're going to win a championship.
I like it. All right, Jorge, Jarvis Landry. Am I giving you all the good ones?
Yeah, seriously. With the Michael Thomas news and where they like to play on the field or where Thomas has had the most success, this is tanking Jarvis Landry's value, which could be a good thing. Yeah, because again, like I said earlier, we don't know what Thomas is going to look like once he steps on the field. The practice reports are great, but let's see how he actually responds in the system, like Nate was talking about also. So he's also somebody that you can get on the cheap. I'd give up a 3rd round pick for him right now because I think that's what he's worth.
I like it. Nate, Allen Robinson.
I love Allen Robinson. I have a hard time quitting him. I had him last year. He obviously left a lot of emotional scars after a season. I'm going to chalk it up to he did not want to be in Chicago. I think that's a pathetic way to look at it, unfortunately, because that means I shouldn't like a person who has that much animosity and pettiness, but he's tied to a great quarterback and a great system. And I think that a lot of people are still burnt so bad that the opportunity and the acquisition cost is actually probably decently low.
Yes, I agree. The last one I threw on here, he doesn't really fit, but I wanted to make light of him, is Rashad Bateman. He's the only guy that's below 28 on this list. I think this is a pre-breakout buy. The Ravens obviously feel really good about him, good enough to trade Marquise Brown away and leave him as the unquestioned wide receiver 1. He is going to get heavy targets this year from Lamar Jackson. And I feel like I have seen him going for, single firsts. I'd feel pretty good about just a single first for Rashad Bateman. So buy low. It's not too low, but get him while the buy window is still open.
Mm-hmm.
Okay, so camp battles to watch. I got several on this list. Some of them are just kind of they're just not fantasy relevant. The ones that I didn't really deem as fantasy relevant, stop me if you guys disagree, is the Ravens wide receiver 2 between Devin Duvernay, James Prochet, Tylan Wallace, and that group. I said the Jaguars wide receiver 2 I didn't deem as overly fantasy relevant. Marvin Jones, Laviska Shenault, Evan Ingram, Zay Jones. And a large reason that I don't deem them very fantasy relevant is honestly, Travis Etienne is probably just a wide receiver 2 on that team.
Okay, so I'll jump in here with this one. You don't think Marvin Jones is the true wide receiver 1 on that team? I know they paid Christian Kirk a lot of money, but I mean, they're probably going to keep Christian Kirk in the role that he was, used to playing in Arizona. Marvin Jones, I mean, he had 120 targets last year. The next closest wide receiver was Laviska Shenault with 99. And of course, Marvin Jones, what does he do? All he does is catch touchdowns. So, I mean, he's a sure pair of hands. Why do you think he's firmly a wide receiver 2 and Kirk is the 1, or what are your thoughts?
I think
here?
Marvin Jones is a 3, if you ask me.
Really?
I think Christian Kirk, listening to Bucky Brooks, who covers the Jags, absolutely is enamored with Christian Kirk. He said Kirk and Lawrence have essentially just pretty much I made love, the phrase there, each other in practice every time in terms of getting the ball to him. And he said it's been profound how good Christian Kirk looks in that system. And my 2, I'm going to say this. I think Zay Jones outproduces Marvin Jones. I think Zay Jones in the slot last year, he was 35th in the NFL in yards per route run from the slot. He got 70 targets in Vegas. I mean, he was 3rd behind, obviously, Renfro and then with Darren Waller. But I don't know. Maybe that's just hypothetical. Maybe I was high on Zay Jones last year, but I feel like that's going to be the look that he's going to want to give is to the slot. ETN's probably their number 2. But yeah, I'm going Kirk over Jones. Maybe we'll have to have a little pie bet, Jorge.
There you go.
Ooh,
Marvin Jones. I've never won a pie bet, so
I've never won any bet.
So I'm willing to throw my hat in the ring there and say the person that's going to outproduce Marvin Jones and Zay Jones is Evan Ingram.
Okay. Yeah, I agree with that. I don't disagree with that. That is, so are we high on Trevor Lawrence then, is what it sounds like? Or are these just,
I am.
I kind of am too.
Yeah.
I didn't think I would be, but I feel like the offensive line's gotten better. The weapons, love all the hype about ETN.
That's it right there. What you just said, the offensive line. Yeah. That is not talked about enough for Jackson.
I mean,
O-line, ETN, proper coach.
Yes.
Yeah. Addition by subtraction. Get rid of Urban, and all of a sudden you have potential.
Big time. Does anyone care about who the Panthers wide receiver 2 is?
Dave Abraham.
As a Browns homer, I tend to think it's just going to magically be Rashard Higgins, but he's still going to be entirely fantasy irrelevant.
Yep.
All right, so let's cover some of these camp battles that actually matter. The one I'm starting off with is the Browns wide receiver 2. Amari Cooper is the unquestioned 1. So far in camp, it has been a solid split, really, between Donovan Peoples-Jones, who I think is in the lead right now. Anthony Schwartz is clearly one of the top 4 receivers on the team. And then David Bell, who really hasn't been practicing yet. I think Donovan Peoples-Jones is the leader out of the gate. Do any of you guys think it might be someone different? Do you feel good about David Bell this year?
You know what? Who's been getting work with the ones and has really stood out is Michael Woods II. He's been a name that they say just pay attention to. It could be week 4, week 5 before he really starts getting some push, but they said that he's made his way already up to the ones and has really had some good one-on-one battles and getting a lot of 50-50 balls. Looks good. Again, super long shot name, but I don't know if he's early significance.
Excuse me while I Google this man.
Exactly.
So, all right. The next one that I'd like to hit is I don't know if this one is really a question at this point, but it's the Colts wide receiver 2, Paris Campbell versus Alec Pierce. It seems like it's just Paris Campbell as long as he can actually stay healthy.
Yeah, it's Paris Campbell until he gets hurt, and then it's Alec Pierce.
Exactly. Yeah.
Well, I hope he can stay healthy.
But
All
Ashton
right.
Doolin's the guy to watch out
Doolin.
for. I'm a big fan of Ashton Doolin.
Not Michael Strachan.
No, Ashton Doolin. The guy's a stud. Just hasn't been given a chance yet.
All right. I like it. So Chiefs wide receivers. It seems, Nate, is Juju just the wide receiver 1 in Chiefs camp?
Yeah. It's looked really good. Granted, it's early. We got 3 days worth of content to go off of, but I'm pretty confident in Juju as far as him being my wide receiver 2 on a lot of teams going forward and having solid production.
I like it. And Jorge, do you have an opinion on who the Giants wide receiver 1 is going to be?
It's Kadarius Toney.
Is it?
Yeah.
Why is that?
Say that again.
Why is that?
He's just been producing in camp. He looks fantastic. There's no injury bug. I mean, I know there's the talk of him having some reputation issues earlier in the year, but that's kind of gone away. And as well as Toney has been performing in camp is exactly how poorly Galladay has been performing. Reports saying that Daniel Jones and Galladay just do not have chemistry, do not have a connection there. I joked about it last week on this pod. Kenny Galladay is to the New York Giants like Kelvin Benjamin's going to be to the Buffalo Bills.
You're a monster.
He's going to be playing right tackle.
Yeah, it's Toney for me. The upside is there. Clearly, we saw what he did last year and how much of a playmaker he is.
All right, so we're going to go ahead and close out on the high note of Giants wide receivers. So, what do we have going over at fantasyandframes.com, Jorge?
So we've just wrapped up 2 of our divisional previews. We just covered both Easts, the AFC East and NFC East. Next, we're going to have the West. So we're going to have the AFC West divisional preview and then the NFC West divisional preview. And when I say preview, Tyler, you said it the other day on Twitter. It's basically like a Bible of a division that we're putting out a couple times a week. We're covering every position from offense to IDP. We're not making it too long-winded. We're giving you all the information that you need to have a successful fantasy football draft this year and to really succeed in getting that trophy that we were just talking about earlier. So definitely check it out over at fantasyandframes.com.
Absolutely. And make sure you listen to all of our podcasts of the Fantasy and Frames family, including this one, Dynasty 365, as well as the show that we are getting ready to start here shortly, Fantasy and Frames, the flagship podcast for fantasyandframes.com. Did I say Fantasy and Frames? I meant Fourth and Frames. We also have Shoot the Gap podcast, our IDP podcast, hosted by Nate Markham and Jorge Edwards, our IDP gurus over at fantasyandframes.com, as well as the Daily Fix hosted by Keith Fleming and Joe Matz, which is our DFS podcast. They're getting ready to really ramp up for the season. They've been doing some best ball stuff over there at the Daily Fix, and those 2 guys are very, very good at DFS. So I recommend giving all of these podcasts a listen. And and get ready for our next book for the Fantasy Bible. It's the AFC West. Is that right?
Yep.
Yep.
All right. And that should be out sometime this weekend. and you can read about the AFC West and all the I'd say the most fantasy relevant division. So make sure you're following all of us on Twitter. Make sure you're following Fantasy and Frames on Twitter. I'm at FF Tyler Heil. Jorge is at Jorge B. Edwards, at Nate Markham for Nate, and at Dynasty Bill FF for Bill Mustafa. So everyone, thank you for listening to the Dynasty 365 podcast. If you enjoyed, make sure you subscribe, rate, and review, and help us out there. So I will see you later. Hope you have a good night.
See you.
I can do this all day.
Yeah, I know.